we're going to look at how to add PracticeStar to your Drupal website. Now I have the page that I want to add PracticeStar on. And the very first thing you want to look at is if this page you've set up is of the filtered HTML type, you're going to want to add additional allowed HTML tags or it won't work. Easiest path is full HTML, but we're going to leave it on filtered HTML to show you some of the settings that you're going to have to check in order to make this work. First thing you notice is that we have some formatting settings, so it's not working right now anyway. So let's go into our filtered HTML, and in order for us to change this, we're going to need to go to set the filtered HTML tags and what is allowed. So I'm going to go up here to configuration, and I'm going to go and find my text formats, and this is where I get to configure things. So I'm going to go into the configure, and it says right here limit allowed HTML, etc. Now you notice what we have here is the default. There's going to be more options in just a few minutes. So let's look at, for our filtered HTML, limit allowed, which ones are we going to allow? And for right now, I'm going to add in H1, H2, I should probably put a little space in there, H1, H2, H3, so that we can have some of these standard things that are used that by default Drupal doesn't allow you to do. So we're going to go ahead and do that, close it, and notice that our content's bigger now. And I can go in, and I had it as an H2. If I want to make this an H1, I'm now allowed to do so, and it will show up. And let's get our page here, and we see that the H1 formatting as set by the default Drupal theme is showing up. Okay, now we're ready to upload our plugin. And so first thing we're going to do is go to our plugin modules page in order for us to install or update the module. Now, before we get started on this, you notice there is a number of already enabled plugins. Our plugin requires the shortcode plugin, not shortcut, but shortcode. And as you see, there is no shortcode plugin. So the first thing we're going to do is install a Drupal-friendly, Drupal-administered shortcode module. This is the Drupal shortcode plugin page. You go to drupal.org/project/shortcode. Here it is. There are some basic shortcode tags that come with this, up to you if you use them or not. And you see down here under recommended releases, you have the versions. Download what is appropriate for your install of Drupal. Notice they have a warning. The shortcode for the WYSIWYG module is in a separate project. The WYSIWYG module, if you use it, is used for formatting text in Drupal without the generic text formatting that we saw in this setup. So use that shortcode module with the WYSIWYG at your own risk. This should work regardless, as long as you've got the shortcode in there, but Drupal is as Drupal does. So once we've downloaded this particular module, we're going to upload it back. So I'm going to go ahead and download this, and we're going to upload it to here. I'm going to click on install or update module. I suppose I could have put in the URL, but I like to download it. So I'm going to choose my file, and here's my zip file. I'm going to upload that, and now click install. This should upload. Install. It says it did. Do I want to finish or install another module? Well, just so happens I do want to install another module, but we're going to go turn on the shortcode module first. After you've done any updating or whatever you need to do, come back to the modules page. And what we're going to see is that under all of our core modules, which were all that we had earlier, we now have all the way at the bottom a shortcode module. It says it provides a shortcode filter, just like WordPress shortcodes, and it's required by these others. The only thing we're going to do right now is we're going to leave this, and we're going to check it and make sure that it is enabled. And it says I have been saved and should be running. So now let's go back and upload our next module that we're going to use, and that's going to be the module that you downloaded or were sent for the PracticeStar shortcode. So I'm going to click my install or update module again. I can either choose a file if I downloaded it, or I'm going to put in practicerates.com/download/Drupal/PracticeStar.zip. And it's completed, installed. We're ready to go back to our administration pages. Let's look at our modules again. Scroll down to the bottom. Notice we have yet another one, PracticeStar. This creates a rating page. It requires the shortcode, which we've already installed, and filter, which was already installed up here. So we're going to check the box, save the configurations, and now we've got our PracticeStar successfully installed, and we now have a configure page. So what we're going to do is click on configure, and this is where you're going to set up your preferences for PracticeStar. The very first thing you need is your practice rate client user ID. This is not your doctor IDs. You're going to need those, but this is the overall client ID. So get that first. If you don't know what that is, it should be on your dashboard, or contact your practice rate representative. For our demo purposes and for your testing, we're going to use our user ID of 123. Our patient mask type, this next setting, is whether you want to display a patient's name, first name, last initial, or whether you want to have a general name. We're going to go ahead and say general name, and when you click that mask, you're going to need to provide something. So we'll call this VoxMD patient. Our patient reviews title, this is further down the page where we echo out all the reviews. Let's put in here VoxMD patient reviews, and that'll be the value that we put in there. The last thing, ratings type, votes or comments only. If you choose votes, it's going to count all of the votes for you, whether they leave a comment or not. If you want to just count the comments, you can do that too. There really isn't a penalty for doing either way. Obviously, you'll get a lot more numbers if you choose votes. So we'll just go ahead and do that. Now let's save this configuration. Everything has been saved. We're now ready to go and start adding the code to the page. So we're going to click back to our home and find our demo page that I've already got some content plugged in here. So let's go in, and what we're going to do is start plugging in the short codes that you're going to need. The very first code that you're going to want to have is really the very first little bit is your PracticeStar start code. And I'm going to paste that in and tell you what we've got here. We have an open square bracket, PS start, a space, doctor ID equals, quotes, 1033. Within your practice, remember I'm client ID 123, I could have many doctors. Each doctor will have their own identifier. That's the only thing you need to pass. We close with the square bracket, and then we do what looks like a traditional HTML tag. Close that with our square brackets to close the PracticeStar start sequence. Now what this start sequence is going to do is start a div and echo out a lot of style content. We're then going to determine where we want to put our content for our little box that's going to display all of our scores in. And that's what we're going to put in next. The second code can be really anywhere on the page, but most likely you're going to want it to float just to the right of the doctor's name or some of his initial content. That way it's seen above the fold. So I'm going to just go down here and after the practice location, I've got a couple of lines about what he specializes in. So I'm going to go ahead and put in my PS aggregate code, and it says Dr. ID equals, and again I'm using the exact same one. Now you don't have to put it on a special line. If you do, it will cause a line break depending on how your Drupal is set up, but the style content that is by default echoed out here, along with any other style content that you can add to this in future versions, will echo out right here. For now, if you want to modify any of the style content, put another style tag right here just after the start, and it'll override your default practice rate styles. You can see these on the page once it's rendered out. We'll look at that in just a minute. So we've got our aggregate score, which is our box that contains the count, the number of votes, the number of reviews, etc., comments, and this is what the search engines will pick up. Now, all the way at the very end, usually we're going to put in our last two codes. That's PS reviews, again passing the Dr. ID, and that's going to echo out all of our reviews that we've collected, at least the last 25 of them. If you have more than 25, we give you a link to practice rate. And then this last one is PSN. That closes everything up. It echoes out that closed div, so everything in here is encapsulated with one div, has all the code and everything. Now, we're using filtered HTML. So I'm going to go ahead and show you what happens if you don't do this correctly with the filtered HTML. So I'm going to hit save, and here it is. And as you can see, it's not working. So the question was, well, why isn't it working? We uploaded our module, we configured everything correctly. Or did we? This is where you also want to look at what happens with filtered HTML. So let's go back into our module, and we see on here we have done our configuration of PracticeStar. That was all right. Where we didn't configure it is we go into configuration. We're going to go back into where earlier we were looking at the text formats. And now when we look under, we're going to do first filtered HTML. We scroll down here and we've got a new checkbox, short codes. So we want to check short codes. I'm not going to worry too much about the HTML corrector. This has to do with WYSIWYG, so we don't care about that. Scrolling down, this is how these things are processed. It's going to process the shortcode first. But see where it says limit allowed HTML tags, that's going to be something that's going to get us. Further down here, we have a new filter setting, shortcodes. We want to enable all of our PracticeStar stuff. Save that. And now let's go down a little further and look at what are our allowed HTML tags. And remember, we put in our H1, H2, H3. There's a couple of more that are going to show up that we need to be aware of. One of these is span, and we have to have the span tag because that's where we hide the information that we pass to Google that gets you those stars. Now, depending on how you've got your page configured, you want to check these and make sure that you are getting all of the tags to display all of your content. Let's save that. It's now saved. We're going to close our configuration. And you see that it instantly changed, and it's sort of displaying. It's kind of broken a little bit here where we have our content. It's kind of mashing together, but look, there's our reviews. Everything is coming in. We only have to do a little bit of styling now. So we're going back to our filtered HTML, and I'm going to show you the rest of the tags that we've got to make sure are put in there. Earlier we added our H1, 2s, and 3s because in this particular install it wasn't allowed. So that's styling for you, but for practice rate we also need span, div, p, a, style, image, and br. Once you've got all of those in there, everything will work on practice rate. You notice that it's looking a lot better. But it's not really like we want it. This is when we go back into our page, and right before this, we want to add our style sheet. And you can find this in the documentation on PracticeRate.com. You can also change these once you've got it in there, and notice that remember we put style, so this way it's going to work. So now when I go in and hit save, it formats everything like I want it to. And this is where you can then go and continue to add your style sheet. You can also add this style sheet into your master style sheet if you so desire. We did this the hard way and used the filtered tags. If you go into your configuration for your text formats and you choose to use full HTML, check shortcodes. We don't have to worry about HTML corrector. And under here, just simply enable that. No limits, no nothing. Everything just works. So that's how you get content on here. And you'll notice further down, we've got all of our patient reviews that will look a lot nicer once you put some formatting on it. And at the very bottom, we have for you to see all the reviews for your doctor displayed on his own page on PracticeRate. These reviews are real time. They will pull in the last 25. So it's always going to be up to date. And now Google will start indexing and getting those stars on search results for your doctor.